They kicked their rich mother out of her luxury home, not knowing she paid the mortgage and could cancel it with one call. The message notification chimed on Celeste's phone, a familiar, unwelcome sound that had, for decades, heralded another demand disguised as an update. She picked up the device from the mahogany side table, her fingers, though gnarled with age, still elegant, tracing the cool, smooth surface of the polished wood before lifting the screen. It glowed with a picture of Julian, her son, and his wife, Valentina, posing on what appeared to be the deck of a lavish yacht, the Mediterranean's cerulean waters stretching infinitely behind them, a vibrant, mocking backdrop to the starkness of the text that followed. "Just wanted to let you know, Mother," Julian's text read, his words clipped and devoid of any warmth or genuine affection, merely a perfunctory notice. "We've finalized the itinerary for the cruise. 3 weeks through the Med, starting in Monaco, hitting Santorini, Dubrovnik, Amalfi. It's going to be absolutely divine. The kids are beyond excited. We'll need you to coordinate with Mrs. Gable for the pet sitting while we're away, and perhaps oversee the pool maintenance. We've already given her your number, so expect a call." Celeste read the message twice, her gaze unwavering, her expression unreadable. Not a flicker of surprise, not a tremor of hurt, only a profound, glacial stillness settled over her. For years, she had anticipated this moment, this ultimate, blatant snub. They had planned this extravagant 3-week luxury cruise, meticulously including Julian and Valentina's 2 teenage children, Liam and Chloe, who appeared in the background of the yacht photo, grinning widely. Yet, they had pointedly excluded her, the very fount of the wealth that enabled such a lifestyle. When she had subtly inquired about their summer plans weeks prior, Julian had vaguely mumbled something about it being too strenuous for someone your age, his eyes studiously avoiding hers. Valentina had offered a saccharine smile, her voice dripping with feigned concern, suggesting, "Darling, we know how much you prefer your quiet evenings at home, don't you? All that bustling about, it's simply not for you." All the while, they had subtly hinted, with an unspoken yet palpable expectation, that she should, of course, cover the cost of their pet sitter and house maintenance while they were away, as if it were her natural duty, an unspoken obligation born of their perceived entitlement, a mere footnote to their grand plans. The audacity of it resonated within her, not with anger, but with a cold clarity that surprised even herself. They had not even bothered with a pretense of invitation, not even a token offer of inclusion. Instead, it was a curt directive about her duties in their absence, a casual assignment to manage their domestic affairs while they reveled in her largesse. This final, blatant snub, after decades of emotional and financial exploitation, had finally shattered Celeste's long-suffering resolve. The dam had not burst in a dramatic surge of fury, no cataclysmic explosion of pent-up rage. Instead, it had crumbled, silently and completely, brick by brick, leaving behind a vast, empty space where hope and self-deception once resided, a landscape transformed by the quiet devastation of realization. The last vestiges of her willingness to endure their ingratitude had simply evaporated, leaving behind a clear, unburdened mind. Celeste lowered the phone, placing it precisely back on the mahogany table, the soft click of the device settling a silent period at the end of a long, painful chapter. She did not reply to Julian's text. There was no need for words. Her response, she knew, would be far more eloquent, far more impactful than any words she could type. A quiet, steely determination settled within her, firm as bedrock, unwavering as the ancient oak outside her window. The game, she realized, had finally changed. And this time, she was holding all the cards, ready to play them, not for victory, but for peace. Celeste, at 78, carried her age with an understated grace, her silver hair impeccably styled, her posture regal without being stiff. It was a testament to a life that had, for the most part, been lived in quiet dignity, despite the constant emotional turmoil inflicted by her own family. Her wealth, considerable and primarily derived from her late husband Arthur's wildly successful tech ventures in the nascent days of Silicon Valley, had been a double-edged sword. To Arthur, a man of quiet brilliance and immense integrity, it had been a tool for innovation, a legacy of hard work and foresight, intended to provide security and opportunity. To Celeste, it had initially been a means to ensure her children's happiness and security, a boundless well from which she believed she could draw endless love and appreciation, a means to create a truly connected family. Instead, it had become the very tether that bound her to a life of silent suffering, a golden chain forged by her own boundless generosity and their unbridled, insatiable greed. For decades, Celeste had been the silent financial backbone for Julian and Valentina, and later, for her grandchildren, Liam and Chloe. Her sacrifices had been monumental, often made without a second thought, always with the desperate hope that one day, her unwavering financial support would translate into genuine affection, respect, and inclusion in their lives. A hope that had consistently been denied, slowly eroding her spirit. She remembered the first significant investment she'd made in their lives, nearly 25 years ago. Julian, then a fresh graduate with an inflated sense of his own genius, had wanted to start a disruptive tech startup. He'd arrived at her home with a glossy presentation, filled with buzzwords and grand promises, but, in reality, little more than a poorly conceived app idea, a digital platform for connecting bespoke artisan cheese makers with discerning urban consumers. Arthur had just passed, and Celeste, still reeling from the profound emptiness of his loss, had seen Julian's ambition as a way to keep his father's entrepreneurial spirit alive, a fragile link to the man she adored. She'd quietly funneled nearly $2 million into his venture, an amount that, even then, was substantial enough to secure a comfortable future. The startup, predictably, had imploded within 2 years, dissolving into a flurry of lawsuits and disgruntled investors, leaving Julian with nothing but debt and a deeply bruised ego. Celeste, however, had absorbed the losses, paid off his creditors without a single question, and never once uttered a word of reproach. She simply wanted him to be happy, to pursue his dreams, even if they were fleeting and ill-conceived. The silence had been her burden, a quiet testament to her unconditional, if misguided, love. Then came the home. The very luxury home they now inhabited, the one Julian had implied she was being kicked out of by asking her to leave for their cruise, felt like a monument to her self-sacrifice. It was a sprawling, modern mansion in an exclusive gated community, a testament to Valentina's relentless social climbing and her desire for outward displays of success. They had fallen in love with it instantly, their eyes gleaming with avarice, but couldn't afford the exorbitant price tag, nor the upkeep. Celeste, yearning for a sense of familial closeness, for the image of Sunday dinners and shared holidays under one roof, had stepped in. She had not only paid the entire down payment, a staggering $1.5 million, but had also quietly assumed responsibility for the substantial monthly mortgage payments. For nearly 15 years, every cent of that $12,000 monthly payment had come directly from Celeste's private accounts, a fact Julian and Valentina conveniently overlooked, or perhaps, genuinely forgot, so accustomed were they to her boundless financial support. They simply treated it as their home, bought and paid for by their success, never acknowledging the quiet matriarch who held the purse strings, never once offering to contribute. Celeste often visited, but it always felt like she was a guest in a house she effectively owned, a silently ironic twist of fate. The home was just the beginning. The luxury cars parked in their sprawling driveway, a new Mercedes S-Class for Julian, a sleek Range Rover for Valentina, both replaced every 3 to 5 years, always the latest model, were always paid for by Celeste, either outright or through generous monthly lease payments. She remembered Julian once complaining about the outrageous cost of living and the necessity of keeping up appearances, while simultaneously driving a brand new, 6-figure vehicle that she had just gifted him, without a hint of irony. Valentina's designer wardrobe, her exorbitant spa treatments at exclusive resorts, their annual lavish vacations to exotic locales that always conveniently excluded Celeste, all financed by the woman they barely acknowledged, reducing her to a mere financial conduit. There was the time Valentina had called, not to chat, but to casually mention she needed a little something for a charity gala, which turned out to be a $20,000 couture gown, discreetly charged to Celeste's card. Each transaction, a small cut. Even the grandchildren's education, ostensibly a noble cause, had become another drain, another expectation. Liam and Chloe attended the most exclusive private schools in the city, their annual tuition bills easily exceeding $100,000 combined. Celeste had paid every cent, from kindergarten through high school, including their extracurricular activities, their expensive sports equipment, their state-of-the-art laptops, and even their international school trips to Europe and Asia. She had hoped that perhaps through the children, she might find the connection she craved, a reciprocal bond of affection. But Liam and Chloe, raised in an environment of such unchecked privilege, saw their grandmother only as the source of their endless allowances and fancy gadgets, rarely offering more than a perfunctory hug or a mumbled thank you, often only when prompted by their parents. They'd ask for the latest iPhone, a new gaming console, always with a sense of entitlement, never with genuine appreciation. The disrespect had, over the years, become an entrenched pattern, a deeply etched groove in the fabric of their relationship. Family gatherings, if Celeste was even invited, often felt like thinly veiled board meetings where her contributions were discussed as if they were corporate assets, her investment portfolio openly dissected by Valentina at dinner parties, hinting at its vast size and how it would one day benefit her beloved children. Julian, for his part, would frequently call, not to inquire about her well-being, her health, or her day, but to request another loan for a new business venture that never materialized, or to cover an unexpected expense for the house. His calls always had a monetary agenda, devoid of any personal interest. Celeste remembered a Thanksgiving dinner, only a few years prior, where she had spent hours preparing her famous truffle-stuffed turkey, a recipe passed down from Arthur's mother, a dish she poured her love into. Upon arrival, she was told by Valentina, with a dismissive wave of her hand, that they had ordered catering from a trendy new restaurant and her dish wouldn't quite fit the aesthetic of the meticulously curated table. She had eaten alone in the kitchen, the warmth of her turkey cooling, listening to the boisterous laughter and clinking glasses from the dining room, a poignant symbol of her exclusion, her efforts discarded. Another time, Julian had forgotten her birthday entirely, only remembering to send a hastily chosen, generic gift, a mass-produced silk scarf, a week later after Valentina reminded him. His excuse: "Too busy with work, mother, you understand. So much on my plate." She had understood, all too well. Her only desire had been genuine affection, respect, and inclusion in their lives. She yearned for a simple, heartfelt conversation, a spontaneous visit, a genuine invitation to a family event where she wasn't just a guest but an integral part, cherished for herself, not her bank account. But these desires had consistently been denied, replaced instead by a transactional relationship where her worth was measured only by the depth of her pockets. The cruise, with its audacious implicit demand for her to act as their unpaid house and pet sitter, was not just a snub, it was a final, undeniable confirmation of how little she truly mattered to them beyond her financial utility. The years of quiet resentment, the suppressed sorrow, had finally crystallized into an unwavering resolve, a silent declaration that she would no longer be their ATM. The morning after Julian's text, Celeste awoke not with the usual ache of loneliness or the heavy weight of unspoken grievances, but with a startling lightness, a sense of purposeful calm that settled deep within her. The air in her elegant, yet quietly unassuming, home felt different, cleansed of the pervasive weight of expectation and obligation that had clung to it for so long. The sunlight streaming through her drawing-room windows seemed brighter, the scent of the magnolia blossoms outside, sweeter. She went about her morning routine with unusual precision, each movement deliberate, each thought clear and unclouded. The decision, once a distant, agonizing possibility that she had pushed away for fear of upsetting the fragile family dynamic, was now a firm, unshakable truth, a decision she embraced with surprising serenity. After a single, perfectly brewed cup of Earl Grey tea, its fragrant steam rising gently, she walked to her home office, a room filled with the comforting scent of old books and the quiet hum of her computer, a place where Arthur had once worked and where she now managed her carefully tended affairs. She sat at her polished antique desk, a family heirloom, her fingers hovering over the phone. There was no hesitation, no second thoughts, only a resolute certainty. She first called her private bank, a prestigious institution that had managed her family's wealth for generations, its name synonymous with discretion and power. "Good morning, Mr. Davies," she said, her voice steady and clear, devoid of emotion, a tone that brooked no argument. "It's Celeste Albright. I need to make some immediate and significant changes to my financial disbursements." Mr. Davies, her long-standing financial advisor, a man known for his unflappable composure, usually reserved and professional, detected the unusual, almost glacial tone in her voice. He had known the Albright family for decades, overseeing the intricate web of their finances. "Of course, Mrs. Albright. How may I assist you this morning?" "I require you to immediately cease all recurring payments and automatic transfers to my son, Julian Albright, and his wife, Valentina Albright, effective immediately. This includes, but is not limited to, the monthly mortgage payment on their property at 14, Willow Creek Lane, all credit card payments associated with accounts linked to my funds, their monthly allowances, and any payments related to their vehicles or private school tuition for Liam and Chloe Albright." She listed each item with the precision of a surgeon, her voice unwavering. There was a pregnant pause on the other end of the line, a rare moment of silence from the usually loquacious Mr. Davies. Accustomed to Mrs. Albright's generous and consistent funding of her family, he was clearly taken aback. "Mrs. Albright," he ventured cautiously, his voice barely concealing his surprise, "are you entirely certain? This is a considerable adjustment. The mortgage alone is rather substantial, and the tuition fees are quite significant." "I am entirely certain, Mr. Davies," Celeste affirmed, her voice a silken steel, leaving no room for doubt or discussion. "I understand the implications perfectly. Please ensure that all such disbursements are terminated by the end of today. I will also be reviewing all power of attorney agreements, particularly those related to my son's affairs. You will receive updated instructions from my estate lawyer by close of business." "Understood, Mrs. Albright. I will initiate the process immediately." His tone was now respectful, if still tinged with surprise. He knew better than to question Celeste Albright when her voice held that particular inflection. It meant her mind was made up, and there was no turning back. Next, she called her estate lawyer, Ms. Eleanor Vance, a formidable woman with a reputation for shrewdness and an unwavering loyalty to her clients. Ms. Vance had handled Arthur's estate with impeccable efficiency and had managed Celeste's affairs for decades, often offering quiet, unspoken support. Ms. Vance listened without interruption as Celeste calmly explained her decision, her voice betraying none of the years of pain and quiet suffering that had led to this pivotal moment. "I want all financial gifts, trusts, and future inheritances for Julian and Valentina to be re-evaluated and, where legally permissible, revoked or significantly restructured," Celeste instructed, her gaze fixed on a framed photograph of Arthur on her desk, a silent promise to herself. "My primary focus now is ensuring my own well-being and managing my assets as I see fit, not as a perpetual fund for their extravagant lifestyle. I will be revising my will entirely. I want to ensure my legacy reflects my true intentions, my values, not their perceived entitlements or their insatiable demands." Ms. Vance, a woman who had seen the inner workings of many wealthy families, the greed and entitlement often hidden beneath a veneer of respectability, simply responded, "Understood, Celeste. I will begin drafting the necessary documents immediately. We'll schedule a meeting for you to sign them at your earliest convenience. This will require careful handling, but it is certainly within your rights." There was a hint of something akin to admiration in her voice, a silent acknowledgement of Celeste's newfound strength. As the day progressed, Celeste felt a growing sense of liberation, a profound lightness of being she hadn't experienced in years. Each call, each instruction, was a brick removed from the oppressive wall that had confined her for so long, a chain snapping, a weight lifting. She wasn't just cutting off money, she was severing the chains of emotional obligation, reclaiming her autonomy. She felt a quiet, satisfying hum of power, not over others, but over her own life. Meanwhile, Julian and Valentina, blissfully unaware of the seismic shift occurring back home, were somewhere over the Atlantic, en route to their Mediterranean paradise. Their thoughts were consumed by the luxury that awaited them, the exquisite meals, the pristine beaches, the endless indulgence. The first tremors of their impending financial earthquake began subtly, almost imperceptibly. The following day, Valentina, browsing a duty-free shop at the airport during a layover in Paris, picked up an exquisite designer handbag she had coveted, a limited edition piece in supple leather. She handed her premium credit card, one that Celeste funded monthly, to the cashier, a confident smile on her face. The transaction was declined. "I'm sorry, madam," the cashier said politely, her voice neutral, "your card has been declined." Valentina frowned, annoyed, a flush creeping up her neck. "That's impossible. Try again. It's a premium card, it must be a mistake." The second attempt also failed. "It says account frozen or cancelled, madam. Perhaps you can try another form of payment." Valentina snatched the card back, her face reddening with embarrassment and indignation. "This is ridiculous. Julian," she snapped, turning to her husband who was already impatient to board the next leg of their journey, scrolling idly on his phone. "My card isn't working. This never happens." Julian, annoyed by the delay and Valentina's rising tone, tried his own card, also funded by his mother for personal expenses and his various business ventures. It, too, was declined. "What in the world is going on?" he muttered, pulling out another one, a secondary card he used for more legitimate business expenses, a card that he actually, occasionally, paid for himself. That one worked, but only just, leaving a nagging doubt. They dismissed it as a temporary glitch, a bank error due to international travel, or perhaps a security flag. "We'll sort it out when we get to the hotel," Julian huffed, guiding Valentina away from the increasingly uncomfortable cashier, his voice laced with annoyance. "Mother probably just forgot to top it up again, she's getting old, you know how she is." He didn't connect it to anything deeper, simply attributing it to his mother's supposed absent-mindedness. Over the next few days, as they settled into their luxurious suite in Monaco, with its panoramic views of the glittering harbor, more small, unsettling incidents occurred. Liam's premium gaming subscription failed, cutting off his access to his favorite online world. Chloe's favorite online shopping site wouldn't process her order for a new designer dress, citing insufficient funds. A reminder for their monthly car payment arrived via email, an oddity since Celeste handled all those. Julian tried to pay for a ridiculously expensive bottle of vintage champagne at a Michelin-starred restaurant with one of the cards Celeste usually funded, and again, it was declined, leading to an awkward moment with the sommelier. Each instance was a small prick, an irritating inconvenience they attributed to faulty banking systems, a temporary hold, or mother's oversight, a recurring theme in their dismissive explanations. They were too accustomed to their effortless luxury to imagine a fundamental shift. The true shock came mid-cruise, sailing between the idyllic, whitewashed islands of Santorini and Mykonos, the sun shimmering on the Aegean Sea. Julian was lounging on the deck, a gourmet cocktail in hand, when his phone rang, displaying a number he didn't recognize, a cold, unfamiliar prefix. It was their mortgage lender. Mr. Albright, the stern, professional voice on the other end began, cutting through the background chatter of the yacht, "We regret to inform you that your mortgage payment for this month has not been received. It is now significantly overdue, and we have been unable to reach your guarantor, Mrs. Celeste Albright. We will have to initiate late payment penalties if it is not rectified within 24 hours. Julian's blood ran cold, the warmth of the sun and the gentle rocking of the yacht suddenly turning menacing. "My guarantor? What are you talking about? My mother handles that. She pays it automatically. She always has. We have received explicit instructions from Mrs. Celeste Albright to cease all payments to your account, including the mortgage, effective immediately. Her standing order was cancelled yesterday. We have made several attempts to contact you regarding this change, Mr. Albright. You should have received emails and calls to your registered contact number. Julian felt a dizzying surge of disbelief, then a cold, paralyzing fear that gripped his chest. What? That's impossible. My mother wouldn't do that. She would never. The idea was so unthinkable, so utterly outside his realm of comprehension. The instruction was very clear, Mr. Albright. We require immediate payment, or we will be forced to take further action, including the initiation of foreclosure proceedings. We advise you to contact your guarantor directly. The phone line went dead, leaving Julian staring blankly at the cerulean sea. He stood on the deck of the yacht, the azure sea and the distant whitewashed houses of the Greek islands suddenly seeming menacing, their beauty transformed into a cruel mockery. The sun, once warm and inviting, now felt like a harsh spotlight illuminating the terrifying truth. Celeste, his mother, had not simply forgotten. She had stopped. Deliberately. And he, Julian, had no idea how to pay a $12,000 mortgage payment, let alone the dozens of other expenses he now realized were also her responsibility, all those things he had simply assumed were taken care of. The dream vacation was rapidly morphing into a waking nightmare, a gilded cage sinking into the depths of a financial abyss. The rest of the Mediterranean cruise for Julian and Valentina was a blur of frantic phone calls, rising panic, and bitter recriminations. The yacht, once a symbol of their carefree luxury and social status, felt like a gilded cage, its opulence suffocating. They couldn't enjoy the picturesque ports or the gourmet meals, their minds consumed by the burgeoning financial crisis. Every credit card they tried was rejected, often with an embarrassing ping or a polite but firm declined. The car payments bounced, leading to urgent, threatening calls from the dealerships, warning of repossession. The private school bursar called, politely but firmly informing them that Liam and Chloe's tuition for the upcoming semester was overdue, and their enrollment was at risk, a shocking blow to their carefully constructed image. She's gone insane. Valentina shrieked, pacing their opulent cabin, her carefully applied makeup unable to conceal the terror in her eyes, her voice bordering on hysteria. She's trying to ruin us. After everything we've done for her. All the family gatherings we've hosted, the holidays we've shared. Julian, usually calm and detached, ever the picture of composure, was a trembling mess, his face pale, his hands shaking. She's never done anything like this. What do we do? We don't have that kind of money, Valentina. Not for the mortgage, the cars, the school, not all at once. The reality of their financial dependence, so long ignored, so deftly hidden behind a facade of their own success, was now a suffocating shroud, pressing down on them with crushing force. The true scale of their financial negligence became terrifyingly apparent. They cut their divine cruise short, abandoning their prepaid excursions and luxury reservations, flying home in a desperate, frantic rush, their privileged bubble having burst. The moment they landed, they abandoned their luggage at the airport baggage claim, too consumed by panic to care, and drove straight to Celeste's house, their luxury cars, now symbols of their precarious existence, speeding through the familiar, manicured streets, the engines roaring with a sense of urgency. Celeste was in her sitting room, reading a classic novel, the afternoon light filtering through the lace curtains, when the doorbell chimed insistently, followed by furious, impatient pounding that echoed through the quiet house. She took a deep breath, her heart steady, a quiet strength emanating from her very core, like the calm before a storm. She knew this moment would come, had anticipated it with a quiet certainty. She opened the door to find Julian and Valentina on her doorstep, their faces contorted with a mixture of raw rage, profound disbelief, and burgeoning desperation. Julian's usually composed demeanor had dissolved into a panicked fury, his expensive suit rumpled, his tie askew, his hair disheveled. Valentina's face was blotchy, her eyes wide and glittering with barely suppressed hysteria, her designer clothes looking out of place amidst her disheveled state. "Mother! What in God's name have you done?" Julian bellowed, his voice cracking with a mixture of fear and anger, pushing past her into the elegant foyer as if it were his own, Valentina right behind him, her movements frantic. My bank called. Our mortgage. Our cards. Everything's been cut off. Are you trying to destroy us? To make us homeless? Valentina's voice was shrill, piercing the quiet of the house. How could you do this, Celeste? We were on our dream vacation. The one we planned for months. You've ruined everything. The children are distraught. Liam's gaming account was frozen. Chloe can't buy her new designer sneakers. What kind of grandmother does this to her own family? Her accusations were laced with a profound sense of injury, as if Celeste had committed an unforgivable betrayal. Celeste simply stood, her posture erect, her gaze calm and unwavering, her eyes holding a lifetime of suppressed disappointment. She let their torrent of accusations and dramatic wails wash over her, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing on her lips. They sounded, she thought, like spoiled children denied a new toy, their cries echoing the very entitlement that had led them here. Are you quite finished? Celeste asked, her voice quiet, a mere whisper compared to their clamor, yet it cut through their anger like a surgeon's scalpel, demanding attention, demanding silence. Julian scoffed, utterly incapable of grasping the gravity of the situation. Finished? Mother, we're about to lose everything. Our home. Our cars. The children's schooling. This is your doing. You have to fix this. Now. Before it's too late. Fix what, Julian? Celeste asked, her tone still deceptively gentle, but with an underlying current of steel. Fix the fact that you have, for decades, lived a life entirely financed by me, without so much as a thought for my feelings, my well-being, or my contributions. Fix the years of blatant disrespect. Valentina stepped forward, her hands on her hips, her voice rising in indignation. Contributions. You're their grandmother. It's your duty to provide for them. And your son. This is our inheritance you're talking about. It's what Arthur wanted. Celeste's eyes, usually soft and gentle, hardened to flint, reflecting the unyielding resolve that had finally taken root. Inheritance? Is that what you call it? A never-ending tap of my money, extracted with blatant disrespect and emotional manipulation. Let me tell you about your inheritance, Valentina. Let me refresh your memories, which seem conveniently selective. She paused, her gaze sweeping over them, taking in their entitled expressions, their utter lack of genuine comprehension, the deep-seated belief that they were owed everything. Julian, do you remember that disruptive tech startup you launched 25 years ago? The one that cost $2 million and folded in 2 years, leaving you in a mountain of debt? I paid off every one of your creditors. I absorbed that loss entirely, not a single penny recovered. Julian shifted uncomfortably, his face paling, a flicker of something akin to shame passing through his eyes before being replaced by defensiveness. That was different, Mother. That was an investment. A calculated risk. It was a bailout, Julian, Celeste corrected him calmly, her voice precise, cutting through his self-serving narrative. Just like the nearly $2 million I paid as a down payment on your luxury home. The home you are so worried about losing. And the $12,000 monthly mortgage payment that has come directly from my accounts for the past 15 years. That's nearly $2 million more dollars, Julian. Over $4 million just for your house alone. A house you have never paid a single cent towards, a house you claimed was yours. Their jaws dropped. Valentina looked at Julian, then back at Celeste, a dawning horror in her eyes, her carefully constructed world beginning to shatter. That's not true. We thought you just helped with the down payment. You just said you'd help us get on our feet. You thought. Celeste's voice was laced with a chilling sarcasm, a rarity for her, but a potent one now. You simply assumed. Just as you assumed I would indefinitely fund your luxury cars, replaced every few years, always the latest model, always paid by me. Just as you assumed I would pay for Liam and Chloe's private school tuition, over $100,000 a year, for over a decade. Just as you assumed I would cover Valentina's exorbitant shopping habits, your lavish vacations that never included me, your personal chefs, your gardeners, your endless stream of business expenses that were nothing more than luxury purchases and self-indulgence. She took a slow, deliberate step towards them, her presence filling the foyer, dwarfing their bluster. You didn't just take my money. You took my peace. You took my dignity. You took my love and twisted it into a transaction. You excluded me from family events, spoke of my vast wealth as if it were already your rightful inheritance, openly discussing it at dinner parties, and treated me not as a mother or a grandmother, but as an indispensable financial resource, a bottomless ATM. You even had the audacity to ask me to house-sit for you while you enjoyed a cruise that you deliberately, pointedly excluded me from, all the while knowing I was paying for the very roof over your heads, the very cars you drove. Celeste's voice finally rose, not in a shout, but in a powerful, resonant declaration that echoed through the elegant space, each word carrying the weight of decades of suppressed pain. Well, no more. The well has run dry. Not because I lack the funds, but because I lack the willingness to be exploited any further. My decision is final. All payments have been permanently ceased. You will no longer receive a single cent from me. The mortgage on your house is your responsibility. Your cars are your responsibility. Your children's education is your responsibility. Your entire privileged life, which you believed was your birthright, was, in fact, a gift. A gift you never appreciated, and one that has now been rescinded. Julian stammered, his face ashen, his bravado completely gone, replaced by naked fear. Mother, please. We'll change. We'll be better. We promise. Don't do this to us. To your grandchildren. Think of Liam and Chloe. Valentina, tears now streaming down her face, her mascara running, dropped to her knees, clutching at Celeste's skirt. Celeste, please. Think of Liam and Chloe. They'll be devastated. They'll lose everything. We'll do whatever you want. We'll include you in everything. We'll be loving, respectful, just please turn the money back on. We can't live without it. Her plea was desperate, born of fear and self-preservation, not genuine remorse or understanding. Celeste looked at them, truly looked at them, and saw not her son and his wife, but two desperate, grasping strangers, their true characters laid bare by adversity. The years of hurt, the crushing weight of their ingratitude, dissolved into a profound sense of clarity, leaving her unburdened. No, Celeste said, her voice firm, resolute, each syllable a final judgment. The time for promises is over. This isn't a negotiation. This is a consequence. You have chosen your path through your actions and your choices, and I have chosen mine. Now, I suggest you leave. I have a new life to begin, a life of my own making, and you, my dears, have a reality to face. A reality you created. Julian, defeated, his shoulders slumped, slowly helped Valentina to her feet. Their desperate pleas had fallen on deaf ears, their manipulative tactics finally rendered useless. Their faces, once arrogant and self-assured, were now etched with a profound, terrifying realization: they had truly lost everything they believed they were entitled to. Slowly, Julian took Valentina's arm, and without another word, they turned and walked out of Celeste's house, their footsteps echoing hollowly in the sudden, profound silence. The door closed behind them with a soft, final click, sealing the end of an era, and the beginning of another. Julian and Valentina stumbled out of Celeste's house, not as the usual entitled couple, but as two shells of their former selves, their grand illusions shattered. The pristine lawn, the manicured hedges, the very air of quiet elegance that surrounded Celeste's home, now seemed to mock their sudden destitution, a cruel reminder of the life they had squandered. The drive back to their own mansion, once a source of immense pride and a fortress of their self-importance, felt like a slow, agonizing journey to an impending disaster, each turn of the wheel bringing them closer to the abyss. The true weight of Celeste's words, delivered with such devastating calm and undeniable precision, began to press down on them. The mortgage payment, the car leases, the school fees, the credit cards, the sheer volume of expenses they had come to take for granted, had simply never considered, now entirely their responsibility. Panic, raw and unadulterated, set in, a cold dread that seeped into their very bones. What are we going to do? Valentina wailed, her voice cracking, her tears hot and unending, as Julian pulled their Range Rover, its lease payment now overdue, into their vast, empty driveway. We can't pay for this house. We have no savings. Julian, what do you even do for a living anymore? All your investments were her money. Your business deals were always just her bailing you out. Julian gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white, his facade of competence completely crumbled. His career had been largely a facade, a series of failed ventures and nebulous consulting gigs, all propped up by Celeste's limitless funds. He earned a modest salary from a position he had largely coasted through for years, one that barely covered his personal indulgences, let alone the colossal expenses of their lavish lifestyle. He had never needed to truly work for anything substantial. The very next day, the avalanche began, a relentless cascade of consequences. Notifications piled up in their inboxes and on their phones. The mortgage company issued a formal notice of default, threatening foreclosure. The luxury car dealerships called, their tones sharp and unyielding, threatening repossession if immediate payments were not made. Liam and Chloe's private school sent an unequivocal email: tuition must be paid within 5 business days, or the children would be unenrolled, their education abruptly halted. Their endless stream of subscriptions for streaming services, gaming, and premium apps, all linked to Celeste's now cancelled cards, shut down one by one, their digital lives suddenly dark. Their grand mansion, once a haven of luxury and a symbol of their untouchable status, became a constant reminder of their impending doom, a gilded cage slowly collapsing around them. Every opulent chandelier, every designer furniture piece, every expensive appliance seemed to mock them, echoing the vast, empty space where their wealth once flowed. They started bickering incessantly, their arguments escalating from frustrated whispers to screaming matches that vibrated through the silent, echoing rooms. Valentina accused Julian of being useless, of having no real career, of relying solely on his mother. Julian retorted that Valentina's extravagant spending and insatiable desire for designer goods had made their situation infinitely worse. Their relationship, built on the fragile foundation of inherited wealth, began to crack under the strain. The children, Liam and Chloe, quickly felt the seismic impact of their grandmother's decision. Their generous allowances vanished. Their private school informed them they couldn't attend until tuition was paid, leading to confused and tearful confrontations. Friends stopped inviting them to parties, sensing the abrupt shift in their parents' fortunes, the subtle scent of impending downfall. Liam's gaming console was disconnected, and Chloe's online shopping sprees were abruptly halted, her credit cards useless. They were confused, then angry, then profoundly frightened by the sudden, inexplicable loss of their privileged lives. They confronted their parents, who could only offer vague, panicked explanations about financial restructuring and temporary setbacks. The veneer of their perfect, privileged lives crumbled, revealing the fragile, dependent structure beneath, a house of cards built on someone else's generosity. Meanwhile, Celeste, in the quiet solitude of her elegant home, felt a profound and unprecedented peace. The initial days were spent in a contemplative silence, almost a detox from the decades of emotional clutter, the constant demands and anxieties. She reconnected with Mrs. Gable, the pet sitter they had intended for her to manage, not to discuss Julian and Valentina's pets, but to simply chat, to share stories about her own beloved cat, Whiskers. She called an old friend, Margaret, whom she hadn't spoken to properly in years, having always felt too preoccupied by her family obligations. Margaret, delighted to hear from her, immediately invited Celeste for lunch, a genuine connection forming anew. Celeste began to rediscover herself, the woman she had been before her wealth became a burden, before her family became a weight. She spent an entire afternoon in her garden, something she hadn't done in years, pulling weeds with a surprising vigor, feeling the earth in her hands, a simple, grounding pleasure. She dusted off old art supplies, long forgotten in the attic, and began to paint again, a long-dormant passion for watercolors rekindled. She booked a solo trip, not to a lavish Mediterranean cruise, but to a quiet, serene spa retreat nestled in the mountains, a place of healing and introspection she had always longed to visit, a place of peace. The contrast was stark, almost jarring. While Julian and Valentina's world spun into chaos, their lives consumed by debt and fear, Celeste's world settled into a beautiful, harmonious order. The silence in her home was no longer lonely, it was liberating, filled with the gentle hum of her own contentment. The absence of demands was not a void, it was a vast, open space for self-discovery, for genuine connection, for quiet joy. She felt lighter, years younger, as if a great, oppressive weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She was finally breathing freely, truly living, for the first time in a very long time. Months later, the landscape of both Celeste's life and that of Julian and Valentina had irrevocably changed, permanently etched by the consequences of their choices. Celeste thrived. Her elegant home, once a sanctuary from her children's demands, was now a vibrant hub of her own making, filled with laughter and meaningful activity. She had reconnected not only with Margaret but with several other friends from her past, women who valued her for who she was, not for her wealth or what she could provide. She joined a book club, delving into new worlds through literature, took up pottery classes, her hands shaping clay with a newfound satisfaction, and even started volunteering at a local animal shelter, finding immense joy in simple acts of kindness, in the unconditional affection of the animals. She traveled more frequently, choosing serene, culturally rich destinations that fed her soul rather than catering to ostentatious display or social climbing. She spent her days pursuing hobbies, nurturing genuine relationships, and enjoying the quiet luxury of true financial and emotional independence. There was a sparkle in her eyes that had been absent for decades, a deep contentment that radiated from her. She looked younger, not just physically, but in spirit. Her laughter, once rare and reserved, now flowed easily, uninhibited. She was, finally, truly happy, no longer bound by the invisible chains of unrequited love and endless, unappreciated generosity. Her money was hers again, and she was spending it on experiences that enriched her own life, not propping up the unsustainable facades of others. Julian and Valentina, on the other hand, had faced the harsh reality of their choices, stripped bare of their illusions. Their sprawling mansion, once the unshakable symbol of their social status and perceived success, had been foreclosed upon. They had been forced to sell their luxury cars, barely recouping enough to pay off some of their accumulating debts. Julian had to take a full-time, demanding job in a field he found utterly uninspiring, a stark contrast to his past, gentleman of leisure, existence. He learned, for the first time, the meaning of hard work and genuine responsibility. Valentina, stripped of her designer wardrobe and lavish lifestyle, struggled immensely. She found work as a high-end retail assistant, a job she initially considered beneath her, but one that provided a much-needed income and forced her to interact with the world in a way she never had before. They moved into a modest, rented townhouse in a far less exclusive neighborhood, a far cry from their former opulence. The children, Liam and Chloe, had been pulled out of private school and enrolled in the local public high school. It was a jarring adjustment, filled with initial resentment and frustration, but one that, surprisingly, began to teach them valuable lessons about resilience and self-reliance. Without their endless allowances and constant flow of new gadgets, they were forced to engage with the world in a different way, to earn their own money through part-time jobs, and to appreciate what they had, rather than constantly craving more. The family arguments were still frequent, fueled by resentment and the stress of their new reality, but a grudging understanding of their past errors slowly, painfully, began to emerge. They were learning, the hard way, to stand on their own 2 feet, to survive without the golden safety net. Celeste occasionally heard snippets of their struggles through mutual acquaintances, but she felt no schadenfreude, no vindictive satisfaction, only a quiet acceptance. She harbored no ill will, she simply understood that they were finally experiencing the consequences of their actions, something they needed to do to grow, to truly understand the value of self-sufficiency. She had given them everything, only to realize that true love and respect cannot be bought, nor can they be commanded. They must be earned, freely given, and reciprocated. Her journey had taught her that the most profound act of loyalty and kindness one can perform is often towards oneself, by upholding one's own dignity and setting boundaries, even with those one once loved unconditionally. Her wealth, once a burden of obligation, was now a tool for her own freedom and fulfillment, a testament to her quiet strength. This story of Celeste's quiet triumph, of a mother reclaiming her life from the clutches of ingratitude, is just one of many tales of justice and profound life lessons that we share on this channel. If you found Celeste's journey inspiring, and if you believe that true wealth lies not in what you possess, but in the peace you cultivate, then you're in the right place. Don't miss out on more stories like this. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you're always the first to know when a new video drops. We love hearing from you. Have you ever faced such blatant ingratitude from someone you've helped? What would you have done if you were in Celeste's situation? Share your thoughts, your experiences, and your wisdom in the comments below. We read every single one.